Red Ray Gun Limited presents
The Benji and Nick Show. Greetings to everybody out there, whether you're on the planet Mars or whether you're sat at home on a really comfortable chair. You're listening to The Benji and Nick Show.
That's right, where we sometimes speak like this.
Occasionally, yes. I just go into quick fire voice like that when I start. When naturally I should probably talk more like this.
Oh, I wish they could see your microphone positioning expertise then, the way you went back there and then close up like that. It was
the old technique. The old crane.
I'm not Benji, by the way, but he is.
Yes, and I'm not Nicholas Briggs actually, but he is. There you go.
Well, that much is clear.
It's like a riddle.
Yeah, can you work it out? Email us at podcasts@nicholasbriggs.com. So, yes, just to let you know, as you've probably gathered, this edition of the Benji and Nick Show is essentially about the Doctor Who movies, or Dalek movies, as people like to call them. Should we just say Dalek movies? I think we should say
Dalek. I think
movies.
Dalek movies. That's
from the 1960s, 1965 and 1966. So that's what we're going to be talking about. In quite a rambling fashion. But just want to tell you, before we start that the Benji and Nick Show is sponsored by the Jerry Anderson store.
Oh, yeah.
And I believe the offer's still there that if you write destroy, destroy, destroy when you order from the Jerry Anderson store, all things Jerry Anderson, Space 1999, Captain Scarlet, Thunderbird, Stingray, all that. If you put destroy, destroy, destroy as your order code thing, you'll get free shipping on anything you order from them, so it's worth it. Are you looking on the Jerry Anderson
I'm looking
store?
On there now. Well, the thing is, it's actually pretty brilliant, and I really like it because there's such a variety of different things that you can get on there. I sound like a real salesman here, but it's true.
Yeah.
The actual it's almost within itself like a bit of a Jerry Anderson museum, almost, because you look through and you're like, oh look, there's that, there's the figurines there, there's Lady Penelope's car, and then you go and it's like, oh yeah, Spectrum or Stingray or Space 1990. It's just awesome. You get loads of stuff. So if you're somebody, well, if you're like me and Nick, for example, we're big sort of cult followers and love the old sort of telly stuff, then this place is your happy place.
Definitely. Oh, and don't forget, we are still running a competition. I think the closing date's the 23rd of March. And it's to win either a Thunderbird 1, a Thunderbird 2, or a Stingray hoodie. And you have to specify which you'd like. And the question is, according to one of the famous Jerry Anderson shows, what can happen in the next half hour. We've had quite a few entries, but keep them coming in, and the selection of the winner will be entirely random. So it won't matter when you've sent it in. So don't worry about that. Don't worry about being late. And don't forget to send your email to podcast@nicholasbriggs.com. And what else? So give us the answer.
That would help.
And specify whether you want a Thunderbird 1 TB1 or Thunderbird 2 TB2 or Stingray. You don't have to put the
I think you should.
They're rather good. Also, I just wanted to say about Jerry Anderson generally. I bought Space 1999 on iTunes last night.
Did you do it? Oh yeah.
Yeah, it was $8.99. That's not bad for the whole first series.
That's brilliant.
It's not in high definition because those masters are exclusive to the network DVD release, which I imagine is a lot more. But apparently, it's incredible when it's been remastered. But anyway, there I was watching. So I watched the first episode, Breakaway, and really enjoyed it. Can I just go into this now?
You can go. You can run with it as long as you like, my friend.
As Benji goes off and starts doing some DIY in the background. My relationship with Space 1999 is a bit peculiar because when it was launched back in 1975 or 76, was it?
I think it's 75 it started out.
Well, I was very excited to see it. I'd seen a big documentary on BBC Two all about special effects, where they'd gone into the special effects of 2001, and they're sort of A Space Odyssey, which I also watched the other day. But, you know, I'm just spending my life watching stuff. I'm not
anything
doing any
with
work at all.
space and a colon, you're there.
Yeah, that's the main criterion for my watching of something. Space and a colon.
You're just like, Neil, I've got this great series. Hold, stop there. Does it have a colon? It's got a hyphen. No, not good enough. Sorry, not today.
Rejected.
Put it in the pile over there that are going to Oxfam.
The non-colon pile. Well, in this documentary, they went into, you know, their thing about the latest series to use important special effects developments is this new thing from Jerry Anderson called Space 1999. And they showed a clip from it of a remote control Eagle spacecrafts going bonkers, you know, which when they send one out by remote control to monitor the deadly radioactive waste dump on the moon, which explodes and sends the moon flying off on a galactic odyssey. And so I was really charged to see it, and I bought the TV Times, which was the listing magazine for ITV programs in those days, only ITV programs, and independent television for anyone listening outside the UK who wonders what the heck I'm going on about. And I saw when it was on and everything, and there was a picture of an eagle and a sort of lightning strike on it, and everything looked very exciting. I sat down to watch it on the Wednesday, I think it was, at 8:00, and it wasn't on.
No,
because in the southern television regional area of ITV, they didn't buy it.
You're kidding, really?
Yeah.
What was on instead? That's what I want to know. What did they think?
Oh, I have no idea. Some sort of, you know, load of nonsense, as I would have thought then. Probably something very good.
That's
good.
Tragic.
Yeah, and they didn't buy it in for a year. So by the time I got to see it a year after everyone else, and by the time they bought it in, it was a terrible ratings flop in the UK, and it was soon relegated from its prime time Wednesday late evening slot to a Saturday morning throwaway, rescheduled to different times every week kind of slot. And when it came to Southern, that was the slot it was in. I was very excited to watch it, but I think I piled too much expectation on it, you know. You had
a lot of time to do that, I suppose. Yeah. Really.
I audio recorded it, so when I watched it last night, I mean, I just knew what was going to happen next, because they like Death to the Daleks we've mentioned, the audio of it was imprinted on my brain. But interesting to watch. The science in it is absolute bonkers.
I might have to pick that up on iTunes, actually.
Yeah, do it, mate. Do it. It's worth it.
Because I've not properly sat down to watch this in a long time. Yeah, Network, iTunes, Anderson, anybody else, just come in, sponsor us, please. We're not running a marathon, though.
But there are all sorts of plot elements that I was going to say we could do that, but no. There are all sorts of elements of the plot that are just left dangling. Like there's this mission to the planet Meta, which is apparently populated, and the first episode ends with this message from Meta, and you know, there could be aliens out there. They never go back to that. That's how it ends, with that, you know, just think, what? Anyway, I'm loving it, and I will watch some more tonight if I ever finish editing my podcasts for today.
I think the thing about anything 70s space, that's kind of how I think to myself, if you could, if I had to go to space, I just hope it's the 70s version of space. Really.
Well, with lots of noise in it. Yeah.
With lots of, you know, and doors that go.
The comlock they use. The comlock to open doors. So there are several bits where Commander Koenig, played brilliantly by Martin Landau, is desperate to get somewhere, and he has to fumble in his pocket to get this blooming great thing, which is the size of one of the original mobile phones, and point it at the door, and then sort of hold it up to see the tiny TV screen on the end to demonstrate the superior technology used in Space 1999. Also, I will just mention that some of the shots in the first episode are deliberate attempts to echo 2001 : A Space Odyssey.
Well, there we go. So real Kubrick. I just love the opening title sequence with that gorgeous cityscape. Well, cityscape's the wrong word, but a space base.
It's like a moon city, isn't it? Originally designed for the second series of UFO, apparently.
Really? And was never... How interesting.
So they had the model and they thought, oh, well, we'll do something else.
Well, there we go. I expect iTunes will be getting a huge boost in their,
Go do it.
Funding. Yeah, why not? Why not? So there you have it. So we've got a fun-filled podcast for you today as we talk about the Daleks, or rather the Dalek movies from the 1960s. And yeah, where should we begin? I think is
Benji,
at the beginning.
How did you first encounter the two movies, Doctor Who and the Daleks, and Daleks Invasion of Earth 2150 AD?
Very good question, and for me, a very important one for me, because this is my first ever taste of anything Doctor Who. Ever. So I saw the Dalek, the second Dalek film, 2150 AD. I saw that and can remember seeing it on a tiny television screen. One of those absolutely, those ones about that big. It was in the kitchen, and I remember watching and really being frightened of the Daleks. I still actually have nightmares about. The funniest thing is, though, it's not the Dalek film. It's not the actual scenes in the movie. It's like what my memories of this film were from a young age, of the weird, like, beige coloured spaceship and stuff. And I remember it really frightened me for a long time. And I was actually I remember when I was saying the other day about Blockbuster and the BBC Doctor Who releases. I do remember being slightly tentative about watching them, because I thought it might be scary, like the Daleks that I remembered. So my fond memories are of the second film. I didn't see the original Doctor Who and the Daleks for years later, until I bought them in a shop, which I don't know if it's still open, but it's brilliant, called Old and Gold.
Oh, brilliant name.
Great name. And it was like heaven for me. It was just full of cult bits and bobs, VHSs, audio cassettes, books, of everything. And I remember I bought it in there in the old VHS and watched it and fell in love. So that was my first experience with those films. And how about yourself, Nick?
Well, I was aware of them in the 1960s because, and like you, first I was aware of the Dalek Invasion one. Because in the 60s, maybe it was in the 70s, I don't know. There's this, this is just weird. See if you can dissect this, listeners. There was a puppet character called Ollie Beak. And he used to appear. He ended up appearing in the 70s in a series called Lift Off with Aisha, who was in UFO, the actress Aisha, and it was a pop show. They would just have guests, but anyway, there was a earlier version of that show. I'm sure. I'm relying on the expertise of our listeners here, or maybe even you going on the internet. I don't know, Benji. And they used to, what they would do, Ollie Beak, who was a little owl puppet, a bit sort of like Basil
He's adorable.
Brush.
He's adorable.
Oh, you're looking at him now, are you? Oi, he used to talk like that. I think he might have even been Liverpudlian. Like,
what a geezer. What a geezer.
And Ollie Beak used to present clips of the latest movies. And I remember them showing a clip from Daleks Invasion of Earth 2150 AD, which I have a sort of strange distorted memory of now. I remember there being like thousands of Daleks.
Yep, absolutely.
And it was the section where the arguably the most exciting section in the movie, where the little van is pursued by first of all, the van has to crash through all those Daleks in the street. And they go, Patrol 9-2 spaceship, and intercept escaping humans.
Oh, my God.
So, and then it comes down and, in a really badly matted special effects shot, where my son always goes, why has it gone green? where the spaceship swoops down and it engulfs the little van in a ball of flame. So that's my first vague recollection of it. So I knew that those films existed, but I I somehow knew that no one would ever take me to see them in the cinema. I was too young, I don't know what. So it wasn't until 1972, after that season of Doctor Who, I think they announced when the last episode of that season had broadcast, and next week on BBC One, it was going to be Doctor Who and the Daleks. And I thought, that film, brilliant. So I remember being so excited about seeing it the next Saturday that I literally felt as though I could not bear the wait. And I remember nearly breaking my mother's wind-up egg timer, because I wound it round by 12 hours, so it ticked down, so that I'd hear the alarm bell go, and then I would know it was time to. And I remember her say, "What have you done to my egg timer?" "Oh, you stupid boy," and all this. And I absolutely loved it when I saw it. Absolutely, I was slightly confused by why the Daleks were speaking so slowly, but.
Yes, they do speak, and they've got a spring reverb on the voices as well.
I quite liked that.
I like that. I definitely would welcome that back. Actually, would I welcome that back? I don't know. Maybe in retrospect, it's better left in the past.
It's quite nice to sneak a bit of inappropriate reverb on a Dalek voice. They always sound slightly better with a bit of reverb.
Well, they certainly
as most things do.
Echo, I love it. But those Daleks, I mean, let's first.
Big bumpers,
and they are
that doesn't
arguably the most gorgeous Daleks we get to see throughout until they return in 2005, where they look the business. I would say these are the most gorgeous Dalek props we see, and as I'm sure you know, Nick, they lasted. Their shelf life was they got good bang for their buck, in the sense that they lived on and became TV Daleks and Daleks all over the world.
Well, I'm pretty certain, and there are loads of Dalek experts out there, and there's a brilliant website all about the history of every single Dalek prop. I'm pretty certain they did use some of the BBC ones and redress them and repaint them, as well as make.
Well, it'd be logical
ones.
To do so, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I'm pretty certain they did that, certainly for the closer up ones, and they made sort of less detailed ones for the background. Yeah, they were multicoloured. This was, of course, a huge thing, wasn't it? Having the Daleks and the Doctor Who thing in colour. Yeah, and they had big flashing, like the ears.
The lights
were huge.
which flash when they're not talking as well. They kind of, at least in the first film, they kind of just idly flash, don't they, for a while?
Well, that's
in certain scenes.
That's why they speak so slowly.
So I suppose that you think
No, because they were flashing like that. Because they thought, oh, that's good, they got flashing lights, so they just sort of flashed them. So they ended up having to sync dialogue to this flash until they realised at some point during the filming, or maybe went back and did some more filming, I don't know, to do it differently. But I think I said to Russell T Davies once, I said, I'd love to go back and dub that movie with all the Daleks in the background, and while the other Daleks are talking in the foreground and those are just flashing in the background, you just hear them going, just randomly burbling to each other.
Gargling.
What about Peter Cushing as the Doctor in that first movie?
I love him, and I will protect him forever, because I think he is superb. I like it. I like the idea of Doctor Who, Dr. D.R. Who, a human man who... Doctor Who, yes.
My son says, he is the I am Doctor Who.
I am Doctor Who, and these are my companions. He's very sort of, we must defeat the Daleks. I love this. This is TARDIS. The way he delivers all of his dialogue is superb, and the cakes.
Terry Nation's original script is very dark. And there's some really adult, quite unpleasant ideas in there, and yet they're determined to make the film all.
It does it quite well, I think. I don't think it's. I don't think it's executed poorly. I mean, it's very of its time with some of the gags, like the door thing, but at the same time, I like the fact that he's quite playful, and he has such a nice relationship with Susan. Played by
Susie.
Roberta Tovey. But they're nice because you feel that he cares for her and she really cares for him, and he's proud of her and she looks after him, and it's nice, and I think he's believable. I mean, I like the way he basically outright just describes what's good. He's there. We must go back to the city and make sure we do this. You stay here and guard that door. I'll walk over here and do this.
I also, it's interesting the way they deal with the fundamental bit of deceit the Doctor practices in that story. Because, for those of you who don't know, I'm sure you do know, it's based on the first ever Dalek story, which is either called The Mutants or The Dead Planet or The Daleks, depending on which school of thought you adhere to. I just duck while the debate rages. The Doctor tricks them into going to the city, doesn't he? He lies to them. He sabotages the TARDIS in order to say it's gone wrong, so that they have to go to the city to find a replacement part. And it's really interesting, and this is how sad I am because I've overanalyzed this. He does all sort of little winks to Susan, and there are a couple of bits where clearly Peter Cushing is going to do another little nod to Susan, and they edit out of the scene very quickly. They decide, you can see him about to do it at the end of one of the scenes, and they try and make it all playful, but essentially he tricks people into getting radiation poisoning, which is, and of course in hideous. The TV series, one of Benji's favourite lines comes about because of this, doesn't it?
You fool, you old fool!
Which is what Ian Chesterton says to him in the TV series, but it's like, oh, Doctor Who, oh, well, never mind, we've all got radiation poisoning, and it's just because you wanted to come and see this city. I'm not remotely angry. What? Any normal person would want to strangle him for that, wouldn't they?
I mean, as well as that, arguably, what we also have to think is arguably the Doctor, or Doctor Who, is responsible for the massacring of essentially a group of very peaceful and loving Thal natives and their leader.
Well, that's the other thing, isn't it? In the TV series, the Doctor's quite blunt about using the Thals as an army to recover the bit of the TARDIS he needs to get away. And there's some debate about that. And I don't think Ian and Barbara are very happy about that. He sort of says, we've got no choice. We have to use them. They gloss over that a bit in the movie, don't they?
But it does feature that exceptional punch from Ian. It's that real rounded punch, uppercut. He gets punched, that's right. But he does this wonderful sort of...
Yeah, Roy Castle was a great physical performer.
I love Roy Castle, TV legend, Guinness Book of World Records.
Yeah.
If you want to be the best, then you gotta beat the rest. Ooh, dedication's what you need.
If you want to be a record breaker.
Oh. Yeah, so often known for being an exceptional trumpet player as well.
Oh, yeah. Great actor, though, and I think, comedy performer, too. But he was in... Because he had worked with Peter Cushing in a horror movie, or was that afterwards?
I'm not sure. I'll look it up for you.
Showing our ignorance here. I can hear people screaming at the podcast. You fools, you old fools.
You fools, you old fools. Okay, so as Dr. Terror's House of Horrors...
That's it.
Was it before or after? Very good question.
It's probably the same year.
Let's have a look. 1965.
Yeah.
1965. Year. Was he in it? That's the big question.
He was.
Yeah, well, there we go then. So probably, around similar sort of time.
Yeah. And I think that Peter Cushing had also worked with Bernard Cribbins before.
Bernard Cribbins as Tom the policeman, I loved, and I'm sure everybody who knows those films.
And that's in Daleks Invasion Earth.
That's in Dalek Invasion of Earth 2150 AD, yeah. You have to say the full title.
It's Daleks Invasion Earth 2150 AD.
Ooh. Yeah. Sorry, I was doing a noise that was stuck in my head from the first film, actually, which is, I think, like, it's some weird noise in the background of the control room when they come in. It goes...
Oh, when the whole thing lifts up.
So good. But let's just... Can I just devote a small section of this little podcast to talk about the Doors and how wonderful they sound? Not the band, but the Doors in that film. Just love them. Just love them. I think... I love it so much. Sorry, I just had to mention that because they're brilliant. I feel like every door in a sci-fi should sound like those Doors. But great film, the first one. Some lovely stuff as well, like the wonderful. I was about to say the Forbidden Forest, the radioactive,
the petrified
forest. Yes, sorry, petrified forest.
Scared forest,
which had the great thunder. Although arguably, I think the thunder was slightly better in the BBC version. That was really frightening. But let's talk about Aladon and his fantastic cape of wonderful tie-dye colours.
Well, you know, in the 70s, I would take every opportunity to see these films, and they used to be shown as sort of special Saturday morning things at Flea Pit cinemas. I remember the Atherley in Shirley in Southampton. I went there to see it, and always it would just be full of screaming kids. And when Aladon came on with the makeup, you'd get all this sort of
ooh, really? No,
get him, and all this kind. And I remember a big close-up of Peter Cushing and seeing a crisp packet drift down across his face as someone up in the circle just dropped it down. And one of those screenings I went to, I was by far the oldest person there. I was about 14 or 15, and all the kids were much younger, you know. And the screening was ruled over by this usherette, who to me seemed like quite an old lady. I had no idea how old she was now, but she was not a youngster, and she ruled this screening with a rod of iron. She had a torch, and whenever she heard any noise, inevitably coming from the kids, because they'd all been put in a cinema on a Saturday morning to get them from under the feet of their parents.
Oh yeah,
you know,
of course, get them out of the house.
And she'd point the torch at them and say, "You shut up!" And one of the times, and she noticed me, she pointed a torch on me, and she could see I was really concentrating on the film. And then she started saying to people, "Shut up, he's listening." So they'd all turn around and look at me. I thought, oh, don't make me the problem.
So it was for you. But at least
they can't mess about because Nick Briggs was listening. You know.
But well, you know, she's the type of woman I appreciate. People who do their job in Dalek-based films and make sure that people can appreciate Aladon in all his glory. That's what it's about, isn't it, really? Let's be honest here.
So I did make an attempt to move on to Daleks Invasion Earth 2150 AD.
I think we should. I think it's the natural progression, isn't it, to move to that film?
My first viewing of that one was in 1972, because I think they showed it in 1972 again on BBC a few months later. I think I'm right in saying that. And I had just come back off holiday, and then my friend Andrew from round the road, where I lived in Burton-on-Trent at the time, knocked on the door. He was much younger than me. He probably wasn't much younger than me, but of course, you know, just being a year younger in those, you know, when you were a kid.
That's massive difference.
Yeah. But we used to get on really, really well. And he came and knocked on the door, and I just got back off holiday, and I was a little bit impatient with him, like, oh, not Andrew now. God, what? And I opened the door, and he said, "Guess what's on tonight?" And I thought, what's the matter with you? He went, "Daleks Invasion Earth." And I was all sort of impatient with him until he finished that sentence. I was like, what? It's on tonight? Oh, it was just like the best news anyone had ever given me in my life.
What?
I thought, that's the one I saw on the Ollie Beak show. Because I watched the other one expecting it to be about flying saucers and thousands of Daleks and zapping vans in the street. And suddenly I thought, this is the one. And I think it's more of a crowd pleaser, isn't it?
Lives up to its expectation, I think. It is more of a Dalek Invasion of Earth than the TV version, anyway.
Yes.
Although I find the TV version deeply, deeply disturbing and eerie and unpleasant. Not in a bad way, as in I find it thoroughly unnerving. But it's a really good piece of drama, isn't it? That's fantastic.
I mean, I would venture controversially that I don't think that Dalek Invasion of Earth, the Dalek Invasion of Earth, the TV version, I don't think it's very well directed. I've said it. I'm sorry. I think it's like sports coverage. The cameras are sort of vaguely pointing at things, and it could have been done so much tighter, I feel. But I know there were lots of logistical problems. I mean, it's asking a lot, isn't it, to achieve that kind of story in Lime Grove Studio, basically.
Well, exactly, which is why I think in some respects this movie kind of helps that, because it does realise it on a much bigger scale. You know, you have you have the quayside surroundings of London with the factories and sugar puffs everywhere.
Sponsorship.
Everywhere. I'm surprised the Daleks weren't there going, make sure you have your sugar puffs today.
Attention, survivors of London. Have you ever had a bowl of sugar puffs during an invasion?
And Bernard Cribbins and the Robomen up on the ship there eating their sugar puffs instead. Going,
they missed a
surprisingly good.
they were eating dolly mixtures or something, weren't they?
Rolling around on paper plates. I love it though.
Yes.
But it's got a big, massive feel, this film, and the Daleks in this are terrifying. I mean, one thing we haven't touched on about the first film and the second film, and the fact that those Daleks have those wonderful CO2 guns, which are horrible. I mean, they do every time I spray some deodorant, in the back of my mind I'm thinking, Dalek gun.
I'm exterminating my armpit.
Yeah. But you got some absolutely fantastic action moments as well with clashes between the humans and the Daleks. You get some fun explosions from the weaponry, not just the Daleks, but the bombs.
Yes.
So it was the boy with the neck.
Ray Brooks.
It's awesome. I mean, one thing, Nick, I'm sure you'll appreciate is the score.
Oh, the sort of jazzy score.
The jazzy score.
All available on CD and presumably download somewhere.
Oh yeah, you can get that on
was a
vinyl,
fantastic
release,
well, wasn't it? Oh wow, yeah, brilliant scores. But again, you see, I would just like to mention the same with Death to the Daleks. When I first started to get to know the broader fan base, should I say, of Doctor Who, I discovered that these things that I held dear were loathed. I was told they were loathed by Doctor Who fans because they don't fit into the continuity. I wish I could tell you something about them fitting in with continuity and something I've done recently, but I just can't. It's too much of a spoiler, but it will become apparent in, I don't know, maybe a few short weeks' time, actually, but it's quite a funny thing. But yeah, discovering that these great things were regarded as stupid. It's because, I suppose, for people who remember the originals, they could be regarded as a sort of crass condensing of, beautiful, dramatic scenes. For example, I don't know where I said this, but I said this the other day, maybe in an email, that if you look at the scene where the Doctor and Ian in the Dalek Invasion of Earth meet the Dalek that comes out of the water and then get taken away. If you look at that in the TV series and that in the film, that tells you all you need to know about plotting and about changing storylines and adapting things. Because in the TV series, there's this prolonged discussion between the Doctor and the Dalek about, we have already conquered Earth. Conquer the Earth, you poor pathetic creatures. And all that. And so you'll have to destroy all living matter. Take them, and all that. It's quite a long scene, which is condensed in the film to, Daleks, take the prisoners to the spaceship. Move. That's it. That's all they do. And yet you get everything you need in the plot. And that sort of stuff is at the root of my understanding of plotting, because both those scenes achieve exactly the same result in story terms. But of course, all the extra stuff in the TV series is rather beautiful, except for the fact that Dalek voices aren't modulated properly.
There is that. Well, there is also, was it? Yes. I think we better put our wits together and stop them. They just got this Dalek. I heard that.
Yes. I am not deaf, actually. I've conquered this planet, and funnily enough, I can hear what human beings who are standing next to me are saying.
It's so true. It's so true. But it's
yes, old-fashioned drama conventions, I suppose one would say.
Absolutely. But what this film does do very well, I think
by the way, I think that's a fault of the direction. That could have been directed in a different way so that it was more credible that the Doctor was saying it very quietly to Ian Chesterton.
Well, you could have had it maybe like they were being led off, like, if the Roboman's, take them to the spaceship or whatever, on the way as they're walking off away, you could have it, because that's what you would naturally do. You would wait until you're a distance from something before then saying, I think we better put our wits together and try and stop. Well, you wouldn't even say. You just say, I think we better try and do something. Let's sort this out.
Although some people might argue the Doctor deliberately says it to annoy the Dalek.
Very true. Very true.
Who knows?
But it is an interesting, and there are lots of things between the series and the film, things that aren't in there. For example, the Slither, which we don't get any of that actually, which is surprising.
The Slither is terrible in the TV series, which is the creature that the Daleks use as the sort of guard dog around the prison, around the minefield where all the slaves are working on the Daleks' mine.
But then, the strange thing is, given the fact that the team behind the Dalek films are horror veterans in that world, you would think, with the Amicus side of things and Aru Productions, you would think that they'd actually relish the opportunity to use something a bit like that, a bit different, a bit up their street, but they don't, and it doesn't need it actually.
No, it's just makes it a 6-part story in the original thing. But I remember the Slither makes a noise. It goes it's just absolute rubbish, isn't it? And very, very poorly realised. Not alone, I suppose, in the world of Doctor Who. But I mean, I'm sure they were looking to cut elements of the story, and that's just an obvious one to cut because it has no bearing on the central plot.
You can do without
and also,
it.
They must have thought, how on earth can we achieve that convincingly? Some of them perhaps remembering what it had been like on television, thinking we don't want to do anything like that.
No, it's not. It's not required, really. Doctor Who is required. But, I mean, one character in this particular film that I love is Philip Maddock, who plays Broccoli. Yes. That horrible, horrible man who, I mean, I remember feeling actually frightened of him, but also really annoyed. When he kicks that tin of food over, I just thought he just didn't need to do that. That's really horrible.
Try some kick.
It's just like, why have you done that? Like, that's really nasty. Like, come on.
Smells good. Yes. All that, It's and he's all chummy, and then just kicks it over, and it all pours into the fire. So no breakfast for you, Doctor Who and Tom.
It's just like, oh. And those horrible women as well who were in the house, and they grassed them up. Nasty, a lot of nasty, deceitful people. But I suppose they're getting the perks of the living near there and not having to bother so much.
Well, again, you see Terry Nation in the original script was sort of echoing, how people can be corrupted under an occupation. And so they, in a way, in the film, they just make it a bit more trivial. But that is a lovely scene, isn't it, when the two women are sharing their ill-gotten gains from having informed on the fact that they've got Wyler and Susan hiding in their cottage. And Wyler wakes up.
Watches them.
And sees them, and then wakes Susan up, and tells her not to make a noise, and they start to creep out. They open the curtain, and there's a Dalek there. I love that bit of music there with the sort of twiddling flutes.
Yeah.
Forward.
And I always thought
they wanted to go to the mines anyway.
Yeah. I always thought though, with that curtain that opens, that leads to like presumably a series of tunnels that they get to the house, or does it just lead to the outside? I always, as a kid,
the outside.
I always thought that the curtain led to like a secret thing for some reason. That's what I thought when I was little, and I
don't believe so. I think in the TV series, the Dalek just comes in through the French windows or something, doesn't it?
Blasé.
In a sort of Spike Milligan.
Hello.
Put it in the soup.
But yeah.
But it's.
Do you favourite scenes out of the two movies for you?
So should we do one each, because I think that's probably okay. So favourite scene of the first film. Oh, this is. Do you know? I really love. This is really. I don't know why this is even remotely interesting. When they're fleeing the Dalek city, and when all the Thals are as well, and you see them all trying to climb down that huge sort of cliff like thing. I tell you, I really like that, but only because I remember seeing it and being in awe of how good it looked and how big it looked, and you've got the lighting, and I think there's thunder. It might just be in my head from remembering it as a kid, but funnily enough, I just remember thinking when I was little that was it. I thought, this is, nothing can beat how good that looks. Of course, you look at it now, you're like, a bit of fiberglass or whatever it is. And, it's tiny. But that's what I loved about the first film. stupid. It's not even an interesting scene. It's probably not even worthy of being.
No. We have to go with gut reactions.
But that was a gut reaction. How about yourself for the first film?
Wow, it's really difficult. I've got so many bits. Really difficult to choose, actually. So many things that... I suppose the whole lead up to the Thals coming to get the food from the city. And then the just as the Thal leader comes in, the Daleks all come out of their hiding places and and it's just before that happens that the door opens and the Doctor and all his friends are going, "Go back! It's a trap!"
Yes, and
I love that. Yes, dramatic moment there.
He's absolutely engulfed in smoke, doesn't he?
I quite like it as well, when Alidon decides not to be a pacifist anymore, and they say, "And what shall we do?" And he picks up a piece of wood and breaks it and says, "We shall fight."
Oh, and it ends on that cut, isn't it? Yeah. Oh, very good.
Just online the other day, my friend Alex Mallinson was going on about how several phrases that get used in drama that never get used in real life. And one of them was, "You fools!"
Oh, always.
And "we shall fight" probably qualifies as well. People just don't say stuff like that. But, when you use phrases like that in drama, it signals to the audience that this is something heightened. This is something above the commonplace. This is heading toward... I can't believe I'm saying this. Heading towards Shakespeare, for goodness sake. Anyway, on to the second film. I'm conscious this podcast is going on forever.
Well, I just want to say quickly, I'm going to start a campaign to have "You Fool" feature on modern television more often because it's not used enough anymore. You fool! Don't be a fool!
Man.
Yeah, don't be a fool, man.
For heaven's sake, man. For pity's sake.
For pity's sake.
For pity's sake.
For pity's sake. What was it? You can't do that, you fool! He's a fool.
We shall fight!
We shall fight, you fool! Okay, second... Love it so much.
We've got to get a T-shirt with that on, yeah.
This is the essence of our friendship, isn't it, Nick? Based on the fact that we can sit and talk about, you fool! Quite happily. But so the second film...
Two fools. That's what we should call this podcast.
Two
fools.
Yes, please. Second film. Oh, I'm gonna have to go with the Dalek on the ramp, the spaceship.
Oh yeah.
Where it said, was it Sector 4?
Wait, Sector. The president's got to go really confident. Sector 4, and the Dalek looks to one side, doesn't it? Yeah.
No troops have been alerted to Sector 4. Quick! And they grab it, and it goes down that awesome ramp, and you see it, and it's quite a propelled.
Takes a really long time, and then as it falls over, you can see the square hole in the bottom of it.
Classic. And then you get all that great fight scene, and the bit with the knife. When he throws the knife up, and it goes right into the gut of the guy who wonderfully falls, arched over in a sort of. It's just in a really unnatural but yet beautiful way. That
beautiful
whole
bit of stunt work, yeah.
Beautiful bit of stunt work there. But that whole sequence with the tension as well, you've got the robotisation taking place, and really up against time, and people rushing
Shall I stop
through.
the robotising? No. Proceed.
And they're stuck inside these hairdressers, hairdryer things, which is robotising them. And you think, why don't you just duck? You could get your head out of that, but they're looking like, oh dear, I can't escape from this at all.
Well, as well as that, they've got their arms very loosely banded. There's nothing to say they couldn't just go, right, see you later, mate.
Remove their hands.
Or just crawl down. But they don't. But that whole sequence I love because there's so much going on, and it's on a vast scale, and you do get that. And the bombs don't work. Yeah. The bombs don't work. Oh, just excellent bit of cinema there.
And there's a lovely bit of continuity editing cock up as the Doctor and who is it? And the boy with the knack.
Boy with the knack.
What's the name of the character? Is it
Wells? Is it? No. We've got all the... Oh, David. Of course it's David.
Oh, yeah.
Of course it's David.
As they head off away and they just escape the carnage, and in they cut from one shot to another, and they are escaping again in the background. When it's clearly not Peter Cushing either. It's just a random stand-in with a white wig on.
So there's that scene as well. It's like night time when the Daleks are. I can't remember if they're still escaping. By this point.
And they go down the sewer.
The shot, yes, that's right. But I remember thinking it looks gorgeous.
Exterminate!
They all peer around and.
It's sort of dangerously shooting at each other's bumpers, I thought. And they do, and the special effects people have put in amongst all the CO2 vapor, they put little explosive charges, so they're little sparks and bits of flame going off.
That's what it's about, though, isn't it? It's about. Yourself then for the second film.
Well, I suppose the bit that leads up to the first reveal of the Dalek coming out of the Thames, because I just love how speedy it is, and also just in a strange masochistic way, I always expect that Dalek to fall over because it's in the water and it's bobbing dangerously from side to side. I think, oh, it's going to go this time it's going to go.
It's being hit with the tide, isn't it?
Yeah.
Whatever,
and
the lap of the river.
Behind you! And then the Robomen turn around and they go...
Those great guns as well.
Yeah.
I always thought, why are they wearing motorcycle helmets?
Cool. I used to have a motorcycle helmet a bit like that, actually.
Did you used to push it the front down? To the...
Yeah. You see, again, there's another thing about the condensing of plot information. The scene in which the rebels decide to use a Roboman helmet as a disguise to get them to the Dalek ship, that's so painfully long in the TV series. And in the film, it just is one person tosses it over to him and he looks at it, puts it on, and they go...
And you got that great dubbed over. That's really overdub.
Such an unpleasant laugh. Sounds like a school bully, as he's kicking you and nicking your pocket money, But that's it. There's no dialogue in the scene at all.
You are absolutely right. They've essentially taken a hugely long original TV serial and condensed it massively
into an hour and 25 minutes or an hour and 20 minutes, I think.
And actually succeeded. I mean, I feel relatively confident that you could put somebody in front of 2150 AD and do you know what? I think they'd be all right. They'd come away and pretty much know the exact same plot.
It's a darn good story. And I know my son Ben, I've got some video footage of him watching it. And he just looks absolutely rapt, watching that movie. I just want to ask one dull question. Tell me how the Daleks are defeated in Daleks Invasion Earth 2150 AD.
So, isn't it a case of the bomb is dropped down into the centre of the Earth, which somehow interrupts the magnetic fields and switches the poles or something random like that? Essentially, Can
I just say no? You're wrong.
They move the bomb, don't they? They essentially change its path by laying down bits of wood where it wonderfully hits and sort of goes.
This whacking great thing that weighs 50 tons bounces off some small planks of wood. Yeah,
but I can't really remember off the top of my head how the magnetic field is broken or what is done to that, but it just sort of happens, doesn't it?
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense, basically. They divert the bomb down a different shaft, which apparently exposes the magnetic core of the Earth, which then sucks the Daleks down because they're made of metal. That is not what happens in the TV series, but the TV series is just as confused.
The TV series...
Again, it involves the use of flimsy bits of wood. Ian sort of blocks the course of the bomb with some bits of wood that look like they'd snap if you looked at them.
But also, surely dropping a bomb on anything that stops its path is going to most likely explode the bomb.
Clearly not.
Well, especially if it's
not in the TV series. It's not to do with the exposure of the magnetic core, is it? They basically cause a massive earthquake and a volcano or something.
Flashpoint. That's sorry. just came into my head.
The episode
just came into my head, and you got the. Yeah, it's a different. I suppose again though, you do have a whole episode in the TV version, which kind of is really explaining what's going on with this bomb and the situation and that. But in the film, it's very quick and very pretty much on the spur of the moment, isn't it? That's sort of all worked out.
Yeah.
It is confused.
If anyone would like to write in and explain what happens in the TV series as well, because the TV series is not clear, really, I don't think.
It's one of those things, though. I just kind of, with both the films, I just kind of accept that around like that sort of thing happens. I don't sit there and kind of think, but how did it happen? You just kind of think, that happened, didn't it? The Daleks went mad and went through walls, and there's a great.
It's very satisfying, isn't it?
It is very satisfying. Yeah. You get this
all that business when the Daleks are going bonkers at the end, and cannot, whatever they say, cannot control, and they're being sucked down the shaft.
You got that great Dalek that goes over the barrier, hits the edge of the shaft, and then kind of falls forward and then falls down. It's like it looks really like it doesn't just go down the hole. It goes and then kind of goes down.
Well, there you are. Listen, we got a load of emails lined up, but I just don't think we've got time for them this week.
We have been rather carried away with essentially what we love.
So so I'm really, really sorry to our dear friend Tom Saunders and Jenny Shirt and Gary Willard,
Simon Jeffries,
and Susan Mackenzie. Who I'd selected emails for this week. We'll do your emails next week and perhaps some more. Yeah,
we'll have an email section.
What are we going to discuss next week?
Don't know. That's a very good point. What do we discuss next? We've had a few people asking different things. Children of the Stones was brought up.
Oh,
great show, that one.
Yeah,
love a bit of Children of the Stones.
Children of the Stones.
We could do. I mean, that seems like a good thing.
Do you know what we're talking about, folks? Let's do Children of the Stones.
Yeah, I'm up for Children of the Stones. That's a good one. There's not two
ITV children's TV program starring Gareth Thomas.
So it's well worth a watch. A good bit of scary 70s telly there.
Don't forget to email in, and we will eventually get your emails at podcast@nicholasbriggs.com. And don't forget, you can get free shipping from the Jerry Anderson shop if you enter the code DESTROY with no gaps between the words. Although I'm sure they'll be lenient if you accidentally put some gaps in.
But it's well worth a gander on the Jerry Anderson store.
Yes.
So there we have it then. Well, thank you for those who made it to the end. Thank you so much for listening and enjoying. And why not spend some time in this week as it goes on, the heavy days of work and life and stress and everything. Take a little time out to just watch Doctor Who and the Daleks, or Dalek Invasion of Earth 2150 AD. Why not?
Yeah.
So, it's goodbye from me, Benji C.
Yeah, and it's goodbye from me, Nicky B. I'm going to regret calling myself that.
I was waiting for that.
I hate being called Nicky. Why have I done that to myself?
Nicky B. Wiki Woo. Wiki Whiz.
Bye.
Yeah, tally ho. Bye-bye.
Pressing stop.